Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for this very important hearing. And thank you, Mr. Combs and Ms. Blaine, for being here today, but for your care for our veterans and your service to our veterans. And Ms. Blaine, like you, my dad was a veteran, so I know this is personal for so many of us in this country, as it should be. Mr. Combs, I also want to just, before I ask you my first question, I want to say thank you for your service, not just to our veterans, but for your service as a veteran yourself. In your written testimony, you discussed the fact that callers to the Veterans Crisis Line with complex needs often exhibit disruptive behavior, but that many of these callers are also in a heightened state, and they're unable to control their emotions because they're in a very vulnerable position. You also noted that supporting these callers can take a toll on the responders who answer the calls, which is also really understandable. In your experience as the former lead auditor at the Veterans Crisis Line, what do you believe are the most important policy changes that can be made to ensure that veterans who have complex needs get the help that they need while we're also making sure that crisis line workers are supported?
Yes, ma'am. As far as these complex callers, there was a team that was stood up in 2017. This was their purpose. They developed multi-tiered interventions and then offered based on the callers, because the callers are repeated. Based on the callers, they provided training or tools to the responders that might encounter them, how to work with each one of these callers to run it down or to mitigate the concerns. That team has been decimated. Okay. And the people who stood it up, the clinicians who stood it up, have left in protest over the way the callers have been treated.
So reconstituting that kind of team
Yes,
would be an important first step.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Another question for you, Mr. Combs. You've also mentioned that the Veterans Crisis Line had a standard practice of having call responders simultaneously handle multiple chat or text interactions with veterans in crisis. I understand wanting to help as many veterans as possible and trying to reduce wait times, but our veterans also deserve to be given individual attention by crisis line responders. We can and we should accomplish both of those goals. Our veterans deserve to get prompt support when they reach out to the Veterans Crisis Line, and our responders shouldn't be asked to divide their attention between multiple veterans in crisis at once. So can you please discuss some of the risks involved with having responders treat multiple veterans at once and what the crisis line can do to avoid this issue while also ensuring that veterans get prompt help?
Yes, ma'am. As far as the risk, I can talk on a very high level.
Yeah.
Marcia is extremely well qualified to answer that question very specifically. But I will tell you, anytime you divert attention from someone that's in crisis, who is at acute risk of actually committing a suicide or a homicide, you do not want your attention diverted. But I would defer to Marcia for answering that.
And Ms. Blaine, please.
Thank you so much for that question and bringing light to what's happening in the digital media part of what we do at the Veterans Crisis Line. Even as early as yesterday, our responders were still taking 2, sometimes 3 texts or chats from veterans. That puts us in a situation where there are gaps, because if you're dealing with someone that's in a crisis and someone, it could be a kid, because we get a lot of children chatting to the Veterans Crisis Line. You're having to divide your attention, and something could very well go through the gap, and we could miss opportunities. We need to identify a better way to handle those chats, individualize them, so that, one, we don't burn out the responders themselves, and then they're now having to react from anxiety. What did I miss? How did I miss it? And things of that nature.
And when you said we get a lot of kids, who are the kids? Why are they reaching out digitally, texting, chatting?
So every time an entertainer mentions 988 or chat or text there, we see an abundance of interactions from young people. We see it through the calls when they're on spring break or summer break because they're bored and their parents need to get something for them to do. Okay. And then they also get on the chat. We do have some serious chatters that are that young that may be feeling some anxiety and things of that nature, but our line is for veterans. Right. And so that taxes our system as well.
Are they ever children of veterans?
No, these are kids that are in the middle of their classroom.
Okay, so
yes.
I hear you. All right, well, I am, well, we're waiting for the ranking member to return. So I do have one more question, okay, for Mr. Combs. So I think it is important to acknowledge, like you do in your written testimony, sir, that Veterans Crisis Line staff are dedicated, hardworking people who want to help veterans, and that's been very clear from both of you. When you have staff who want to do the right thing and who are working under difficult circumstances, it's really important to provide them with the tools and resources necessary to help them do their jobs the best way possible, including effective, consistent feedback and oversight to help them improve. So, based on your experience as an auditor, and Ms. Blaine, I'll welcome you to comment as well, could you please describe some ways in which the crisis line can improve its feedback and quality assurance so that responders can continuously improve and provide veterans with the best care possible? And I remember that in response to Sarah Moran, you said, you know, there's too much chasing of metrics rather than saving lives. But so how do we assess what we're doing? How do we tackle the chats that are distracting and disruptive, but how do we get this kind of continuous improvement in this operation?
Yes, ma'am. To get the continuous improvement at this point, you change the leadership and the top management that has created this culture of permissiveness. After that, you need continued oversight. And in Congress, this committee has done a wonderful job, and I do appreciate every bit of what you all have done in bringing this to light and seeing this through with me. But you need oversight from the auditors, the Inspector General.
Yep.
If the Inspector General, I'm just going to say the Inspector General community needs to provide continued, repeated, ongoing oversight of the VCL to help them achieve the cultural change they need to achieve to meet this. The call center, as Ms. Blaine is saying, is not the challenge. Yeah. It's the managers and leaders outside the call center who are telling them this is how you're going to do it. We're talking at you, not with you. That's the challenge.
And Ms. Blaine, if you have something to add, I'd love to hear it, and then I'll turn it over to Senator King.
Actually, he said it all.
Okay.
It really does need to just have a change in how they present the information and in management.
Can you get closer to your microphone?
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for that. I absolutely agree with Mr. Combs that there needs to be a change in leadership structure. When we went from serving to productivity, we lost the essence of what needed to be done. Right. That's when the metrics came into play. I shared with them then, having been an analyst at Delta Airlines, you cannot use a productive model in human services. Yeah. It doesn't work. And that's where the problem has been, is that they tried to create numbers instead of instead of quality.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you both again for being here. And now we have our ranking member has arrived back.